Hi guys, today I wanna show you a quick overview of, if not the best grid that I've ever launched. Certainly it was one of the best that I've ever launched or ever seen anyone launch. So, long story short, that grid in less than 4 hours, or no, a little bit more than 4 hours, made 120% return. Right, so 1.2x, 120% in a little bit over 4 hours. And what is more, if not for some unforeseen circumstances, it would have been running still, and I would assume that at such rate, it would have made a lot more because it was still going on very much, as intended at the time it ended. Sorry for the pun. So here we're looking at the grid that was launched on FTX on a derivative instrument UST to USD. So basically, that's futures that reflected the price of UST, or the infamous stable coin, or I would rather say X stable coin, former stable coin of the Luna blockchain relative to USD. And don't be put off by the error here. Actually, it wasn't actually an error, rather something that happened outside of my control or our control. But anyway, so more on that later. So basically, there was a grid that was run on this pair. As I keep telling you in my videos, the thing you're looking for in grids is first and foremost volatility. So the volatility, that's what makes money in grid. And then the second thing is volatility in some range. So whenever you got an instrument that trades in some range and has a lot of volatility, that's potentially the recipe for a perfect grid. And again, in previous videos, the ones who saw my video, for example, on AXS USDT run on OKX, I was talking about my kind of mental buckets of coins that I use for grid. So and I told you that they're one of the most profitable, most risky, but then the most potentially profitable mental buckets of coins are the coins, or the buzz coins, right? The coins that are now have a lot of discussions, generate a lot of buzz, generate a lot of interest, hence generate a lot of volatility. And certainly nowadays, that's end of May 2022, nothing can surpass Luna and UST in buzz and volatility. Hence, I won't go into a lot of details about what happened to Luna and UST. I'm sure you're aware of that. So just yesterday, I caught that the FTX still runs or ran derivative instrument UST versus USD, and then it was an immediate kind of like a lightning bolt hit me. Of course, there should be something interesting going on there. I checked the chart with what's happening there, and sure enough, I saw a lot of volatility in a relatively tight range. So basically what I've done, I've just set up a grid on that pair, and not pair, but a derivative instrument. And again, in 4 hours, made 120%, and would have been making more still. Unfortunately, around, we're looking at 5 minutes candle, so around 20 minutes, even more now. Oh, okay, that was around hour ago, more or less. The trading on this instrument, unfortunately, was stopped on the exchange. The trading was halted, hence the abrupt end of grid. Here you see that all orders were cancelled, and the error that you see here, error says one of child orders was cancelled unexpectedly. So the grid detected that exchange basically stopped trading and cancelled all standing orders. The grid detected that and cancelled, or tried to cancel all the orders that were remaining. All of them were cancelled anyway, and then the exchange also closed the position for me that I had open at the time. So anyways, despite that abrupt closure, once again, I made 120% in those 4 hours. So let's take a closer look how those were calculated, and then I'll go on with the details of, how it unfolded, and, what the settings and how I chosen these settings, and another different one, and what you should expect given such volatile an instrument. So if we open here the total P&L, we see that it's 155 USD. That's what I've done in dollars, right? So what I made in dollars in those 4 hours, and the profitability was 6.14%. Again, that's the one. Those of you who are watching me regularly know that I mostly trade derivatives and mostly trade at 20x leverage. So that's levered P&L, or P&L of the entire grid algo, which was trading with 20x leverage. That means that actually I had to put up 20 times less amount that was locked in the grid, right? So that means that to know my actual unlevered, so to say, P&L that accrued to me, so how what percentage of those $155 that I made are in relation to what I put up to run the grid, we just basically have to multiply this number here by 20. So if you multiply it by 20, you get 120 point something, point whatever. There is 64%. So anyways, 120%, right? So 120% made in 4 hours. How did that happen? So basically, of course, as I said, for grid, you're looking for volatile instrument, and that was almost as volatile as it gets, but yet in a tight range, right? So you don't see a lot of candles that are going through the whole chart, and or so it's kind of was moving orderly, the price, but the volatility was such that, as you can see here, those 5-minute candles, those are 5-minute candles, and you can barely see them underneath the orders that were executed in those 4 hours. So in 4 hours, the grid executed 714 orders, so quite a lot. And that is especially impressive given that my grid wasn't too tight. Usually, to get that kind of number of executed orders per 4 hours, you would need to place your grids very tight, very close to each other, meaning you would get a very small profitability of each kind of grid trade, right? Remember that what the money we're making is they're different, they're kind of the percentage difference between price levels. So if levels are too close, then you're making not a lot, right? In this case, it was not a tight grid, so the distance between the grids was around half percentage point. So that means that each kind of trade or pair of trades, right, buy and sell, or sell and buy back lower. So each kind of this grid iteration, or two trades, their completed cycle of the grid, it generated 0.5% of the P&L of the order size that was placed on each grid. So more or less, I was generating half a box of P&L with each kind of close iteration. So that half a percentage point relatively to normal grid, that's a lot. In normally in normal situation, on a, let's say, your run-of-the-mill instrument like BTC or UST.USD, if you have been running a grid with a half percentage point between those two levels, you would be getting trade maybe, I don't know, every hour or so, right? Maybe a couple of trades per hour, maybe 10 of trades per hour, but certainly not 700 trades in 4 hours. So certainly that means that there was a lot of volatility in this relatively small range, and that what amounted to that unusual and exceptional profitability of the grid. So to sum up, that's what you are looking for to run successful grid. Look for look for buzz generating coins that trade somewhere. Very good if they trade on derivatives that if that you can have you can leverage up your trade and get profitability higher. But even if they're not trading on they don't have derivatives on them yet, even spot will do given the enough volatility. So if it has enough volatility, you're looking at the range it's trading in. If the range is relatively okay, so to check the range, right, let's see what I've been doing. So basically you go to something like 1 hour candles, and you actually see that here it stayed in this range they chosen for my grid for quite a while, right? Then ran up, came back. So being here, I thought that I had a good enough chance of my grid being in this range for the next, I don't know, 4, 5, 10 hours. So at least enough for me to generate enough of PNL given the volatility inside the range, that even if my grid ran out of the range and hit stop here or here, I would still be left with positive PNL. So that's kind of what I looked at, and then I saw that the range here was even better. So you can see here, I missed that. So look for how many hours, right? Maybe let's look at the 20. Okay, 1 day maybe. Let's see for 1 day. So after this eventful fall, basically here it stayed in a relatively tight range for 5 or 6 days, and the volatility was there. God, I missed that. I mean, those 6 days you could have made a killing there. But given that I discovered it just recently, just look at that. That's hours and hours of a tight grid range with very high volatility, and you see those, kind of volume was there. Okay, here of course the volume was a bit higher, so maybe you see the volume here was higher than it was here, so the volatility was not that big or that large for the previous days, but then I think it would have been more than enough for me to make it worth my while. But anyway, so I'm looking at this picture, 1 hour candles, and I'm seeing that probably I'm here, right? So I see there is a good chance that for the next 4, 5, 6, 7, now 8 to 9 hours, the grid will stay in this range. So that's what I do. I put it, there basically after, I selected the highest and the lowest grid levels. So what I did after, I went to, of course, to 15 seconds candles. Oh, we have to go way back. I'm not sure even we have enough. Yeah, here we go. So those are 15-second candles. So, and I saw here that, maybe you can see here that, it basically the price moved inside again here the grid levels every, I don't know, every second or every third 15-second candle. If you see that the grid will be making at least a couple of trades per minute, or at least a trade per minute, that's good enough. That's more than good enough. Let's double check and see how it looked at the 1 minute candles. Okay, once again we have to go way back. Yes, you can see that on 1 minute candles, it looked like it would have been making 1 or 2 trades each minute. And now we're looking at the actual trades, but you can see, I don't know, maybe I can turn them off. Let me see. Can I turn them off? Yes, I can turn them off here. You can see just, the candles were crossing the grid levels. The 1 minute candle were crossing grid levels a couple of times, for example, maybe 2, 3 times, 3, 4 times sometimes. That's a very, very, very good sign. That's what you're looking for. So I knew that I had my relatively okay upper and lower grid levels. I knew that it would be trading, and they would have been trading in that range quite often. So I didn't need to make my grid tight, right? So what you need, so actually, again, what we want to see there, you want to make your grid tight, so to have enough trades per minute. Normally, a trade per minute, it's a very good sign. If you you can see, look, if you put your grid tight enough that you can see that it will be making a trade per minute, then it will be a good grid. Of course, all other things being equal. And if you see that here, I saw that, and then you see with this tightness of a grid, so it will trade at least once per minute, how much of a P&L on each level you will be making. So what is there, the difference between the prices of two levels? Here it was half a percentage point. So that was a perfect setup. I've barely seen other cases like that in my memory that I've been trading grid algos. So I see that. I see that with half percentage point between two grids, I'll be trading a couple of times per minute. And that leaves me a little doubt that I'm going to be successful running that grid. The only thing that was left to decide while launching the grid is where, kind of, do I think that the grid will, stay in this range, or rather the price will stay in this range, or ultimately it will, it has a chance to go up or lower. So where basically I was trying to make not forecast, but at least an estimate whether there is a higher risk that the price will, break up from the grid range, break down from the grid range, or stay in the range. From what I know, that's where, just looking at the chart usually is not enough. You have to understand the the context around the asset you're trading, the coin you're trading, what's going on there. And we know that despite all the negativity and everything else, there is a lot of effort around trying to save Luna and save UST. Those efforts might not necessarily lead to the save, to this to Luna being saved, and especially not to UST being saved. I'm not sure anything can, really save it. But given that even small, given the total negativity surrounding that, I didn't think that there could be, a lot of negative news that could push the price still lower, because it looks to be, as low as it can get, given that, I've been trading in this range for quite a while. But then I also noticed, looking at this and this breakout here, which happened, quite fast. And so there was one here, and then there was one here. Then I saw that, that looks that like any kind of or positive news or positive even rumor of something good happening to Luna or UST could, push the price way higher. Sorry for that. Okay, and hence that's why I decided, looking that the price had a recent breakout and then was coming back, I put all my grid levels below. So let me change this to maybe, okay, that's 1 hour. Okay, let me change this to 15 minutes. Yeah, it will be easier to understand. At the moment I've been launching my grid, the price was somewhere here. So I put all my grid levels below the market price. At the moment, my expectation was that the price will continue to go lower, and at some point it will enter the grid range and it will trade here. Why did I do that? Why didn't I put the grid here and here? I did that to limit the risk of a positive breakout of the price. So as I said, I believe there was a fair chance that the price will move up, and by setting up the grid this way under the market price at the moment, my entire grid consisted of just buy orders, so I didn't have any position, and to start trading grid would be buying at all these levels, and if the price whenever the price goes back to this level or goes higher, I would be left with a neutral position. So what I didn't want is to have the risk of being left with the short position of UST if the price breaks up for 30-40% in a matter of minutes. So my expectation was that the grid will be trading somewhere here. At some point it would move higher, and at that point I virtually will have no risk because my position will be zero, and no matter how high the price moves, I won't be losing money here. So the only scenario under which this grid would be losing would have been losing money is that the price went actually, you know, here, so moved lower than the grid level. That here I would be left with a huge long position of UST. But given that I didn't believe that the price will move much lower, or if it will move there, I thought that it would quickly come back to the levels, or close to the levels it has been. So I decided to put the grid here, and that decided me to, you know, spend those 4 hours in a relative peace of mind, knowing that, you know, unless the price moves down, I don't have a, you know, a risk of positive move of the price. So that's one of the ways you can uh, use your understanding of the market, or your forecasting of the possible, or the probability of market price moving up or down, to choose how you're gonna run your grid. Whether you're gonna run your grid with, you know, I'll say neutral, where you have buy and sell orders, so you're launching it with the market price being in the middle of the grid at the start of the grid, or you're gonna uh, put it under the market price. This way you won't have any risk if the grid, the price leaves the grid range and goes higher. So you won't have any risk here. Or alternatively, if you believe that the price eventually will move lower, you would put your grid, you know, above the market price at the moment. This way, if, you know, it will moves a bit higher, it will be trading in the grid range, and if it moves lower eventually, you won't have any risk left here, because you have neutral position at this level. Okay, so once again, to sum up, that was probably one of the, if not the best grids that I've launched in my entire trading career. It would have been even better if not for the exchange that halted the trading in this instrument. Unfortunately, right at the very moment that I've chosen to run my grid. But even so, I've made 120% in 4 hours. So that's the power of grids to you. Thank you for your attention.